even though the copyright exists as soon as your work has been made tangible, you still need to do a registration. And there are a number of reasons why that's important, but the main one is that you can't sue anybody for copyright infringement without a registration.
Welcome to the Vana room. We are back with another episode. It's going to be Monique and I manning the ship today, and we are going to be discussing kind of the top 5 common mistakes that musicians make. Now, these are the common ones that we see, that I've made, that I'm sure Monique has made in the past as well, and we've learned from them. So we want to share them with you so you don't make those same mistakes. So, Monique, how was your weekend? Before we kick off, how was your weekend? How is everything going?
Everything is going great. Thank you so much. I know we're on different coasts, so but I'm pretty sure we're sharing the same weather. So it's beautiful out here right now,
Yes.
and just doing house projects, part of being a homeowner. So
Yeah.
but yeah, everything's good. How was your weekend?
Good. We actually had rain yesterday. It rained all day, which is very uncommon in LA. And it was 90 degrees last week, and now it's like 50s and 60s.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so we're getting kind of a pretty big difference in weather. But the sun is shining. There's no clouds in the sky, and I'm not going to complain.
That's the best. At least the sun is out and it's not raining. So I'm
Yep.
all for that.
Yep.
Okay, so today's episode of the Vana Room, as Lennon said, we're going to be talking about top 5 mistakes. So I'm going to kick it off with split sheets. So first, let me explain what a split sheet is. And we're not going to dive too deep into this stuff because we do have other episodes that cover these things in way more detail. But we felt it important to at least, hit the top 5 to make sure you guys are staying on top of these things as you move forward with your career. So split sheets is a split sheet is a document that anytime you collaborate on a work, you need to have this document that states how much of the work each of you own. So since we're talking about music, if one person wrote the lyrics and another person wrote the composition, the beat, whatever you want to call it, the musical part of it, then as of right now, that's a 50-50 split. And you have to understand that copyright law says if you don't have something in writing, that's exactly what it is, a 50-50 split. And the problem with that is some people go, well, I'm fine with that. That's cool. But what's missing in your understanding is that also means that if one person wants to sell it and make money off of it and the other person wants to give it away, both people are correct in what they want to do with that work. So in addition to that split sheet, you also need a songwriter's agreement, and then your publishing split as well. So please make sure that if you're collaborating on a work, you have a split sheet filled out and signed by everybody who's participating in that project. And sometimes it's more than just 2 people, Sometimes 2 people did the lyrics or a team of producers created the beat or whatever. But you guys have to determine how much of the song each of you own, because that information also has to go to your PRO, which is ASCAP or BMI or whoever you're with. So
I want to add too to Monique's point of getting everybody to sign. This includes your best friends. This includes Cousin Eddie. If he's recording on a track, you've got to have them sign this, because if your track goes viral or does really well and the money starts coming in, that's where this piece of paper comes in handy, and you can say exactly who owns what and how much everybody's going to get. And there's no he said, she said, or he said, he said. It's all lined up. So even if it's your best friend, no handshake agreements.
Yeah. Everybody's friends until the money starts coming in,
Yes.
So I always tell my students, hash it out while the money is fake, because the minute the money is real, then you start to really see who these people are. So hash it out before money is a real thing.
Yes. So let's talk briefly about a couple things that should be on your split sheet. Monique mentioned a few things. You mentioned like the composition, the publishing. What other stuff would be included on that, or should I include on a split sheet?
So you should have obviously your name.
Yes.
You should have your IPI number, which is something you get from your PRO. You should have the date, obviously. You should have, and let me just be clear, there are templates for this out there, and I think we have one available for you guys as part of our presentation, but including, who the record label is, who the representative is, because when people start to come around and want to license your content, they're going to need some information. So contact information of all the parties involved. Try to keep that updated. So if somebody changes a phone number, update your split sheet information or your contact information for that person. So what do we have? We have IPI numbers,
email,
contact
phone.
information. That's the main thing. Just contact information, and then the percentage. And please understand, you're only splitting 100%. There's only 100% of anything. There's no 200%. There's 100%. And there's the writer's draw, and then there's the publisher's portion. So when you hear people say, oh, the publisher gets 100%, the writer gets 100%, yes, but what's really being split is 100% of the money came in, and then how much of that is the publisher getting? That's 100% of their cut is what is being said. It's not 100, 100. It's 100 total. The writer gets their cut, the publisher gets their cut. And right now, for 95% of the people who are watching this, you are your own publisher. Most of you are not signed to a publishing deal of any type with another company. So you are also your own publisher. So understand that.
Yes, that's a good point. Split sheet is contact information, the names, keeping those updated. If a licensing opportunity comes in, you've got to know exactly how to contact John Smith. If Sony comes to you and wants to license a song, you've got to be able to get a hold of John Smith immediately. So keeping all that information updated is very important. So moving on to kind of our next sheet or point is going to be researching your industry. Monique mentioned your PROs, ASCAP, CSAC, BMI. In Canada, it's SOCAN, and every country has their own collecting and performance rights organization. So you've got to research which opportunity will work best. Now, a friend of ours, our good friend Davey J, who's an intellectual property lawyer, she always says which PRO to join. It's a Coke or Pepsi question. So it's a matter of preference. It's a matter of what opportunities does BMI offer you versus ASCAP. I know out here in LA, I've been to events where BMI has sponsored them. I've been to ones where ASCAP has sponsored them, and they're giving their writers different opportunities to perform and all that stuff. So it's a matter of researching, does BMI do more live events? What types of live events do they do? What types of events does CSAC offer or ASCAP offer? What types of opportunities do they offer as well? Not just live performing. Do they offer remix contests? Do they offer different kinds of submissions, stuff like that?
And networking
Scholarships,
events too.
networking events. It's conferences, discounts to conferences, things like that. So it's important to research your industry, not just in PROs, but everything. Who are these people at these PROs? Who are the artist managers? Who are the artists? What types of things are they doing? What kinds of things can you draw inspiration from and learn from? Taking notes on how these people are operating within the industry.
Especially, if you are kind of settled on a particular genre, then learn who the people are in the genre that you're trying to work in. So the music industry is vast. Labels are constantly being purchased by a larger company. Joint ventures are constantly being formed. Independent labels are coming out, blah, blah, blah. This person got fired from this company, but this person and got hired over here. It's a lot to keep up with. So start small. Start with the genre that you're working in. And if you have music that could potentially cross over, then start with one and then learn the other and find out where the connection is, find out, you should always know who you sound like because that's something that people need as a reference. And I know everybody's like, well, I'm unique. My sound is not like, okay, that's cool. But at the end of the day, people are looking for some sort of reference. So a good practice would be to think about the bands or the artists that you would be categorized with, or like if I had a Pandora station, what artists would you be popping up with? And research those artists. Who are representing them. Go look at their social media. What labels are they on? What events have they done? And start to kind of look and see if you can place yourself in those same areas, because that not only do you sound like that artist, you may potentially share a demographic, a target audience with them, so that's something, when Lennon says research your industry, it's, it's like doing homework. We all hated doing homework in school, but this is something that is going to move your career forward. So you gotta be a part of the process.
Yeah. And so one of the tools that I personally like is Google Drive. It's free. You can create a free Google account. I use it for everything. There's tons of other tools out there, but Google Drive, you have your spreadsheets where you can keep everything up to date. So if you have a manager or friends that are helping you, you can share that and collaborate on those documents. You can write press releases in Google Docs. Google Drive is a really good tool to utilize for keeping all this information organized.
I agree 100%. I use Google a lot myself.
Yep. I think we all do. Monique, you have another really good one.
Yeah. So again, we have a whole episode coming up on this, but it's still worth the mention, which is copyright registrations. So even though the copyright exists as soon as your work has been made tangible, you still need to do a registration. And there are a number of reasons why that's important, but the main one is that you can't sue anybody for copyright infringement without a registration. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that after you've created your work, and yes, you can file the registration after you've distributed your work, just make sure you do the registration. So get your copyright registration, and then make sure you are going to the copyright office. There's only one place to register a copyright, and that is with the Federal Copyright Office. Okay, so that's done at copyright.gov. Again, there's a whole episode on this, but I want to make sure you guys are not using these fake websites out here where they're like, oh, you created a song, register it with us for $10 and we'll give you this certificate that says this is when you created it. You don't need to do all that. Just like Lennon said, if you've got Google Docs, all you got to do is create a document, keep to track of the date. You already have a file that has time codes and everything else in it. You already have what you need. So stay away from the fake sites. And then educate yourself, going back to researching your industry. If you don't understand copyrights and you're not sure what form to file, please take the time to go to the copyright office and watch their tutorial videos. Their videos are fantastic. It's a great resource. They've done a great job of trying to clean up the website a bit. So make sure you are filing the correct application and form for the work that you are submitting, and make sure you own it. You can't file something that you don't own. So if you don't have rights to it, you shouldn't be filing a copyright registration. To understand the difference between being a owner and a work for hire, where you may not own the work, you were hired to do it for someone else. So that registration is just so important.
It's very, very important. And I want to iterate Monique's point of be very careful of those sites that say that they can register your song for you, because there's so many of them and they don't actually do anything. I would also err on the side of caution for watching YouTube videos on it. Like, you can get a basic understanding, but everybody's registration is going to be different. So it's not a one size fits all. There's different owners, there are different people own the compositions, different people own the master, and all that stuff. So be very cautious of watching YouTube videos and don't just copy what somebody else is doing. You've got to
I'm telling you,
make sure that,
like you said, use them as a reference, but then go to the copyright office and look at their videos, because you can register something as a group, you can register something as one work, Like there's, like you said, there's no one size fits all. And I think that's really important for people to educate themselves on how this works. And if you don't know, then set aside money in your budget to contact a copyright attorney to help you, because this is not something you want to mess up. Trust me. I see it all the time. People going, oh, well, I did this, so it must be this. And I'm like, nope, that's not right. So
Yeah.
yes, educate yourself on making sure you're filing the right form.
Yeah. And a lot of times if you're hesitant to contact an attorney because they can be expensive, sometimes they'll do like a free 30-minute or 15-minute consultation, and you'll be able to get a very brief overview, explain what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and they can give you a few tips to move forward. Otherwise, another great thing to do would be to contact a local university that does entertainment law, and you can sometimes get a hold of their student bodies that do entertainment journals and stuff like that, where students are actually trying to do pro bono work, and they're mentored by actual attorneys and who are licensed and certified by the bar, and you could get some advice from them as well. That might be another opportunity for you as well.
And I would, and just to err on the side of caution with that, is please understand that if someone gives you really generic information, it's because they have to be careful about giving legal advice to someone who is not actually their client. So to Lennon's point, yes, there are different organizations at a lot of law schools that will provide pro bono in certain areas. But depending on what it is that you're asking them, they may not be able to fully provide what you need, but they'll steer you in the right direction, and that's what you need.
Yes, that's exactly what you need, and that's the point of this whole conversation, is making sure that you're on the right track so that you can make informed decisions.
Yes.
And there are resources out there for
We
that.
don't want you guys wasting money, getting your identity stolen because you're using a third-party website that is not what it says it is, so watch your credit card, watch your personal information. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah. In a digital age, it's very easy for people to take and steal your information.
Yeah.
And it happens every day, unfortunately.
It's so easy to put a scam website up and convince people who don't know any better. If you're just using the keywords, it's so easy to, draw people in and steal from them.
Yeah, unfortunately. And unfortunately, musicians get the brunt of that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So moving on, the next thing is I want to touch on my topic of doing everything yourselves and not delegating. That's another common thing that I've run into myself, is I've realized that as I'm writing music and doing all this stuff, there's so many things that have to happen on the outside, like registering your copyrights, getting your publishing registered, signing up for an LLC if that's necessary, getting contracts in place, and not delegating that, and being able to have somebody come in and help you so you can focus on the bigger picture things, which is writing more music and creating more content. And that might even be social media content. Maybe you need somebody to help you create social media content. There is a lot that goes into working on music and building a brand for yourself, that there's no possible way for you to do it yourself. There's no way, and you shouldn't have to do it yourself. Have a friend to come in and help you. Hire an intern. Hire an admin assistant. There's lots of people that are willing to help you do these types of things. But there's no way you can do it all yourself and grow and scale your business.
This is the significance of doing what's called a SWOT analysis.
Yes.
That SWOT analysis is everything. And so for those of you that don't know, SWOT is a acronym that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so what you need to do is analyze what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Those two things are what we call internal factors, right? Opportunities and threats are what we refer to as external factors. So you need to do an analysis. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And then build your team around your weaknesses. If you don't know the business side of the industry, then find somebody that you trust that does have that knowledge and that background. And the key is that you trust that person, but you still need to educate yourself. some of the biggest lawsuits in our industry are people who chose to be ignorant, hire someone who knew more than they did, and then that person ended up taking advantage of them. I don't want that to happen to you guys. So still educate yourself, but understand that you can't, there is not enough time in the day for you to sit, write a song, record it, and handle some of this other stuff. So as long as you know what needs to be done, you know who to hire. Think about any company. The reason a job became available is because they knew there was a need for that position. Whoever is at the top of the food chain at that particular company can't do their job and every other job, but they need to know what every other job in that company is so they can hire somebody in to do it. You need to do the same thing because at the end of the day, you are a business. It is what it is. So, hire people or partner with people who have an understanding or a strength that you don't have in order to help you get to the next level. So definitely the delegating is super important. Plus you're managing your time better too when you delegate to other people and you take some of the stress off yourself. This is also what Lennon, I love about, and this is probably something we'll talk about later on, but this is what I'm loving about the shift in the music industry now is because you can put out your own music. A lot of these companies now are positioning themselves, and this is kind of what I do too. And Jamvana is moving in this direction as well. But artists can put out their own music. Now let us help you with the other stuff that you don't know how to do. You need help with your branding? Cool. Let us help you with your branding. You need help with your website? Cool. Let us help you with your website. You need a social media team? Okay, we'll help you with social media. And I'm seeing a lot of these publishing companies do this too. And it initiated, in my opinion, with the legacy artists that are finding new life in their old recordings through some of these new publishing companies like Primary Wave and Hypnosis, So, and those are the services that they're offering: sync licensing, branding, digital branding, strategic partnerships. So, and that's where the gold mine is. You know what I mean? Yeah, know where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then bring people on board that can help you with that.
Yeah. So to recap, that is the SWOT analysis, SWOT. And going back, it's open up a Google Doc, put in SWOT, and list out your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And just really spend an hour or two on this and really think about it because it's pivotal and it's going to change your career on where you can identify what you need help with and what you don't.
And sometimes an opportunity could be, oh, this music festival's coming. The threat could be it costs X amount of dollars, to get into that festival, and you don't have the capital to get into it. So how do you fix it? The whole purpose of laying this stuff out is to address it, not to stress yourself out. It's like looking at your to-do list like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff I have to do. It's like, no, you do things in small chunks. Put the things that belong together and figure out how to sometimes kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the SWOT analysis. I'm sure we'll talk about that. We'll reference it throughout many other episodes. And I know Monique had another one. You had SMART goals. Maybe that's a topic for another day. Unless you want to briefly talk on that one.
I think we can do the SMART goals when we talk about like marketing and branding, because I really think, because I could go off on that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But I think we definitely want to talk about setting SMART goals when we do marketing and branding, because that is something a lot of artists do. And I'll just plant, since Lennon planted the seed, I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of water to it, which is which is when we talk about SMART goals, basically what we're saying is set a goal for yourself, make it something that's achievable, and then set out your plan to achieve that goal. And we'll talk about that in more detail, like I said, when we get to marketing and branding and that sort of thing. But definitely start looking at how you're laying your goals out A lot of new artists tend to overwhelm themselves. And I know this is so cliche, so forgive me for saying it, but it's the truth. You've got to crawl before you can walk, and you've got to walk before you can run.
Yep.
Because if you try to run before you know how, what happens? You stumble and you fall. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that unfortunately, for a lot of artists who try to do that, that fall keeps them down for a very long time, takes money out of their pocket because they weren't paying attention. That's why we hear about people signing bad deals. So learn the process. Crawl before you can walk, walk before you can run. But yeah, we're definitely going to talk about SMART goals at another time.
Yes.
But what I do want to add, our last point on this list, which are the proper codes to collect your royalties. Too many people get into this industry not realizing that there are some things that have to be attached to your music in order for you to collect a royalty. Everybody thinks you just create the music and then you stick it on a platform, which a lot of people don't even know how to get it to a platform. You know, some people still think they need a record label. You don't need a record label. Not today.
Nope.
So my main thing is, and again, we are going to have other episodes that talk about these in detail. So I'm just touching on them. I'm planting that seed, and then we're going to water it. So ISRC code, which stands for International Standard Recording Code, that has to be attached to the actual recording of your song. So let me back up for a second, because I keep saying song and then recording. And we have an episode on copyrights where we go into this as well. But you need to understand, when we say song, we're talking about the lyrics and the composition, or just the composition if it's an instrumental or a classical piece or whatever. The recording is exactly that, the actual recorded version of that song, right? So it's still a song if you wrote the lyrics out. It's still a song if you have sheet music. But now you record it, and there's a recording of that song. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So there is a code that gets attached to your recording, and that is how you collect a royalty for your downloads. And then you have your UPC, which, I'm sorry, back that up. The ISRC is so you can collect for your streams. Your UPC is how you're collecting for your downloads, which is also a part of the ISRC. Your ISWC, okay, let me see if I can get this one right. I think it's International Songwriting Code.
I think it's International Standard
Work Code.
International Standard Musical Work Code.
Okay, they just don't put the M in there.
No.
Because it's just ISWC. So International Standard Work Code, or Musical Work Code. And that is for your song, your lyrics and your composition. And that code is attached to your lyrics and composition when you submit your work to ASCAP and BMI, or BMI, whoever you're working with, as a writer and a publisher. So you got one for the recording and one for the song, right? And then you have your IPI, which is attached to you to make sure, like, if there's another Monique Mason out there, I need to make sure that the stuff that this Monique Mason wrote comes to this Monique Mason. So you have an IPI. You also have what's called an ISNI, which is, again, just another code to make sure that the royalty is going to the right person. So the ISRC and the ISWC are attached to the actual work. The ISNI and the IPI are attached to the person who created that work. Okay? So these codes are really important because this is what's tracking all your stuff in these digital formats to make sure that you get paid, and they can track how many times the song played, how many people downloaded. So when you guys hear about, oh, so-and-so sold this many, or Cardi B had 10 million streams. Well, the reason they know that number is because of these codes that are attached to the music. That's how they can track how many people are streaming the song. Without it, you're losing money. Or not even losing money. You're leaving money on the table, as they say, right? because it's just sitting there, which is why the creation of the MLC was so important out of the Music Modernization Act of 2018. As soon as the MLC rolled up their sleeves and dove in, within the first, what was it, like 2 or 3 months of their existence, they collected 4 million or 4 billion, some crazy number in royalties that were just floating about.
It was like $430 million.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And within months, just a few months of them, opening their doors and starting to collect. So stop leaving money on the table, people. Make sure your codes are attached to your work, and and keep track of your stuff. Make sure you're looking at your invoices that come in from your aggregators, your PROs, your publisher, if you have somebody else keeping track of stuff for you. Gotta keep track of that so you understand exactly how you're getting paid and where the money is coming from. So those codes are significant.
Yeah, and where the MLC got that money is the streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music. They hold these royalties for the mechanical royalties. They don't know who to pay because these artists are nowhere. They don't have their IPI numbers, so they're called black box royalties. So these streaming services hold all these royalties in a fund and say, we don't know who these royalties go to. So then the MLC come in and said, okay, we will take those off of your hand and we'll find the songwriters and distribute these royalties accordingly. Because if I'd have to double check this, but I believe they only keep them for 3 years and then they get distributed evenly across the bigger artists like Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran and all those people. But that's what they're called, is black box royalties. They hold them for a certain amount of time, and the MLC came in and said, we'll take those off of your plate. And now they're trying to find who those songwriters are so they can pay them those royalties.
And hopefully, once they get that done, people will start learning the process and we won't have to worry about black box royalties anymore because everybody knows to register your work and then everything goes where it needs to go. So those are the key things. Those are the key things. And I would oh, you know what? I want to add something to the list, Lennon.
Sure.
I want to add something to the list.
Let's do it.
Nobody is going to like this. It's important to understand that when you get paid from these different sources, that you are not their employee, which means if you are collecting $600 and a minimum of $600 from these different sources, you got to pay your taxes on this money, folks, which means those companies are sending you a 1099 at the end of the year. So don't forget about your 1099s. Don't just like, oh, look, I got $1,000 royalty check. Woohoo. And then you just go out and you splurge on you and your friends. No, sir, no, ma'am. You better take about $500 of that money and stick it in an account that you're not touching and be ready to pay your taxes at the end of the year. So make sure that you are tracking your expenses as an artist. Did you have to pay to enter a festival? Did you have to travel somewhere to go play a gig? Did you have to buy new guitar picks? Because all of these are expenses, deductible expenses on your taxes. And you're going to need those deductions come the end of the year if you've been collecting, even if you license your music. If I license a song to Lennon and I say, Lennon, $1,500 up front is my fee for this song, plus the royalty I'm going to get because Lennon's putting it out somewhere and ASCAP and BMI are collecting my royalty. That $1,500 that Lennon paid me, I have to pay taxes on that because he did not withhold taxes. So please, ladies and gentlemen, be mindful that you are to submit W-9s to these people, and you'll see it. They ask you for it. That's because if you collect money from them and they pay you in excess of $600 or more, you're going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. So don't go filing your taxes until you check and make sure you have all your 1099s. That's another mistake artists make. Not even just artists, just people in the music industry in general.
Yes, I would keep track of, in a spreadsheet, of everybody you work with everybody that is paying you, and just write it down the second you work with somebody or sign a contract that you expect money from. Write it down in a spreadsheet. So then at the end of the year, you can be like, okay, I think I'm going to be receiving a 1099 from them. And then at the end of the year, follow up with them. Hey, I worked with you back in March. I made this much money. Will I be receiving a 1099? Some companies don't send 1099s, but always confirm with the company or person that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Don't file those taxes. Don't go on TurboTax and say, oh, I made $10,000, but I don't have any 1099s to show where it came from. Don't do that. You will be getting 1099s from these companies. And that's a really good point.
Yeah. And, if you're not sure, talk to an accountant. But please understand that even money paid in cash under the table legally needs to be reported to the IRS. Yep. Don't think just because there's no paper trail that you don't have to pay your taxes. That'll get you in trouble too.
Yep. Don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do that. And we are definitely
that.
we're definitely not tax professionals. So it's best to consult a tax professional.
But these are the basics that everybody should know. So please make sure you are aware. And there are videos out there for, taxes for musicians. And there's a few forms that have to be filled out. And if you do your taxes digitally, you just plug in the numbers. But the key is that you are organized throughout the year. So all you got to do is sit down and go boop, boop, boop.
And
instead of going, where's all my receipts? I can't find my receipts. I don't know how much I spent.
Yeah.
Make it, I would say make it like every Friday, sit down and enter your receipts into the spreadsheet and save the receipts in an envelope or something. Or if they're coming to you digitally in your email, create a folder in your email and drag. That's what I do. I drag everything into a folder in my email.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Every Friday night, you crack open a bottle of wine and you go through all of your business receipts.
Yep. And at the end of the year, you are your accountant's favorite client and you're stress-free because you kept track of everything.
And you've had how many bottles of wine throughout?
Right.
So there's no stress.
There's no stress. Just make sure you start before you start drinking.
Yes. Start working before you start drinking. Yes.
Correct.
So do we want to do a quick recap before we wrap up?
Sure.
And then we'll close it out.
Sure. All right. So we got split sheets.
Yes.
Did we start with split sheets?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. We said. So first one on our list was split sheets. Make sure you have your split sheets. And like we said earlier, we do have some documents that you guys will be able to access to utilize for yourselves. So feel free to download those as they are made available to you. Then the next one I think we had was researching your industry and making sure you take notes and keep everything organized. Yep. Then we had copyright registrations, making sure you register your copyrights.
Very important. Protect yourself.
Yep. And then delegating responsibilities. So building your team, which I cannot stress enough. And then we had proper codes to collect your royalties. So that was the ISRC, ISWC, and all that jazz. And then paying your taxes. Don't forget to pay those taxes.
Paying your taxes. Gotta pay those taxes, folks. That's exactly right.
And please keep in mind, guys, we were just scratching the surface with these today. We have so many episodes that are going to dive in so much deeper and kind of fill you in on the whole process and where all this information goes and who's collecting it and who's using it and all that kind of stuff. But please feel free to contact us at Jamvana. And any of us here that are on the Vana room will see, or you can comment below the video and ask us a question. If there's something you have a question about or you want to know, let us know, and we will certainly create an episode around it if enough people, have that question, or we'll just reply to you directly.
Yeah, absolutely. We want these topics from you guys so we can help diversify and answer all these questions, because a lot of these nuanced questions come up and they don't know where to go. We're here to help and guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. We want everybody to be successful. And we want to see
Yeah.
you guys be able to capitalize on your art, protect your art, and manage your rights as you should.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. You definitely should. So thank you for tuning in to this week's The Vana Room. I am really excited. I think it went really well. We'll see you next week. My name is Lennon Seahawk and my co-host Monique Mason. And thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.